teed off and watched in horror as her ball headed directly toward a foursome of men playing the next hole. Indeed, the ball hit one of the men, and he immediately clasped his hands together at his crotch, fell to the ground, and proceeded to roll around in evident agony. The woman rushed down to the man and immediately began to apologize. She explained that she was a physical therapist. "Please allow me to help. I'm a physical therapist, and I know I could relieve your pain if you'd allow me," she told him earnestly. No, I'll be all right. I'll be fine in a few minutes," he replied breathlessly as he remained in the fetal position, still clasping his hands together at his crotch. But she persisted, and he finally allowed her to help him. She gently took his hands away and laid them to the side. She loosened his pants and she put her hands inside. She began to massage him. She then asked him, "How does that feel?" To which he replied, "It feels great, but my thumb still hurts like hell." An old man walked into the bank and stood in the queue. When it was his turn, he handed his bank card to a bank teller and said, "I would like to withdraw 10 pounds. The teller told him, "For withdrawals less than 100 pounds, please use the ATM." The old man wanted to know the reason for this. The teller returned his bank card and told him, "These are the bank rules. Rules are rules. Now, sir, please leave if there is nothing else I can help you with. There is a queue behind you, and you will find the ATM outside." The old man remained silent for a few seconds, then handed the card back to the teller and said, "Yes, can I withdraw all my money?" The teller was astonished when she checked the account balance. She shook her head, leaned over, and whispered, "But, sir, you have 80,000 pounds in your account, and the bank doesn't have that much cash currently. Could you make an appointment and come back tomorrow?" The old man then asked, "How much can I withdraw today?" The teller told him any amount up to 5,000 pounds. "Well, better give me 5,000 pounds just now." The teller then handed it very friendly and respectfully to him. The old man put 10 pounds in his wallet and stood a couple of seconds before asking the teller to deposit 4,990 pounds back into his account. Little Johnny was sitting in class doing math problems when his teacher picked him to answer a question. "Johnny, if there were 5 birds sitting on a fence and you shot one with your gun, how many would be left?" "None," replied Johnny, "'cause the rest would fly away." "Well, the answer is 4, said the teacher, "but I like the way you're thinking." Little Johnny says, "I have a question for you. If there were 3 women eating ice cream cones in a shop, one was licking her cone, the second was biting her cone, and the third was sucking her cone, which one is married?" "Well," said the teacher nervously, "I guess the one sucking the cone." "No," said little Johnny, "the one with the wedding ring on her finger, but I like the way you're thinking." A man was riding in the back of his limousine when he saw a man eating grass by the roadside. He ordered his driver to stop, and he got out to investigate. "Why are you eating grass?" he asked the man. "I don't have any money for food," the poor man replied. "Oh, please come to my house." "But, sir, I have a wife and 4 children." "Bring them along," the rich man said. They all climbed into the limousine. Once underway, the poor fellow said, "Sir, you are too kind. Thank you for taking all of us in." The rich man replied, "No, you don't understand. The grass at my house is over 3 feet tall. Me and my 2 brothers wanted to give my grandma nice birthday gifts. My 2 brothers, both more wealthy than me, bought a brand new car and a beautiful cabin on lakefront property, respectively. I couldn't afford anything other than a talking parrot. However, this could have worked well for me because this particular bird was trained to quote Bible verses, and my grandmother is very religious. A week after her birthday, we each received a thank you letter from Grandma. To my first brother, "Hi, darling. Thank you for the new car, but my eyes and ears aren't what they used to be, and I'm not sure I can drive anymore. But thank you so much because it's the thought that counts, love. Nana. To my other brother, hello, dear child. Thank you for the cabin, but I'm afraid my eyesight isn't what it used to be and I can't fully appreciate the view. But thanks again, sweetheart. It's the thought that counts, love, Nana. To me, hello, sweaty. I know you can't afford a great deal, but I appreciate what you gave me so much. It was precisely what I needed. The chicken was delicious, love, Nana. Jerry was at a marriage seminar, and the leader of the seminar, a lady, was asking everybody how long they were married for. When it was Jerry's turn, Jerry said that he had been married for almost 50 years. Wow, the leader gushed. That's amazing. Perhaps you can take a few minutes to share some insights with everybody about how you stay married to the same woman for so long. Well, Jerry said after thinking for a few moments, I try to treat her nice, buy her presents, take her on trips. And best of all, for our 25th anniversary, I took her to the Bahamas. Well, that's really beautiful and a true inspiration for all of us, the lady said. Maybe you can tell us what you're going to do for your 50th anniversary, she said with a smile. Well, Jerry said, I'm thinking of going back to the Bahamas to pick her up. The local bar was so sure that its bartender was the strongest man around that they offered a standing $1,000 bet. The bartender would squeeze a lemon until all the juice ran into a glass and hand the lemon to a patron. Anyone who could squeeze one more drop of juice out would win the money. Many people had tried, over time. Weightlifters, dockers, etc., but nobody could do it. One day, this scrawny little fellow came into the bar, wearing thick glasses and a polyester suit, and said in a small voice, I'd like to try the bet. After the laughter had died down, the bartender said, Okay, grabbed the lemon and squeezed away. Then he handed the wrinkled remains of the rind to the little fellow. But the crowd's laughter turned to total silence as the man clenched his little fist around the lemon, and 6 drops fell into the glass. As the crowd cheered, the bartender paid the $1,000 and asked the little man, What do you do for a living? Are you a lumberjack, a weightlifter, or what? Weightlifter. The little fellow quietly replied, I work for the Australian Taxation Office. The new preacher moves his things into his new office and comes across the former pastor, taking his items out. The former pastor says, I left 3 envelopes on your desk. If you have any trouble, open them. Well, of course, the new preacher thinks he will never have to use them. But in his youthful enthusiasm, he tries to change the order the kids march in during vacation Bible school. Well, this makes the workers absolutely furious, and there is a lot of ugly talk about the new pastor. He remembers the envelopes and opens the first one. It says, You haven't been here long, but you decided to make a change in the vacation Bible school. Now everyone is mad. Tell everyone that the former preacher had told you this was how you preferred to do it. So, the young preacher did that, and it worked well. He had been there about 1.5 years when he tried to change the deacon position from being a lifelong job to a position that rotated annually. Well, this made the deacons really mad, and they were the ones who made his salary recommendation. So he went back to the drawer and got the second envelope. You did something to make the deacons mad, and there's talk of replacing you. Tell them this is the official denominational policy, that you thought they wanted to comply, but it doesn't make you any difference what they do. He tried this, and again it worked great. You guessed it. After 3 years, he finally told the women's organization that they were going to have to open the kitchen so that it could be used without a representative from the women's group being present. This put the women's organization in open revolt, so he went back to that third and final envelope. You've been here about 3 years, and you finally got the women's organization mad. The only thing to do is prepare 3 envelopes. Jean was out walking with his grandfather in Paris. At one point, They saw a shoemaker being insulted by a customer who claimed that there was something wrong with his shoes. The shoemaker calmly listened to his complaints, apologized, and promised to make up for the mistake. Jean and his grandfather stopped to have a coffee. At the next table, the waiter asked a man if he would mind moving his chair slightly so that he could get by. The man erupted in a torrent of abuse and refused to move. "Never forget what you have seen," said Jean's grandfather. "The shoemaker accepted the customer's complaint, while this man next to us did not want to move. People who perform some useful task are not bothered if they hear some critics to their work, but people who do no useful work at all always think themselves very important and hide their incompetence behind their authority." An Irish painter by the name of Murphy, while not a brilliant scholar, was a gifted portrait artist. Over a short number of years, his fame grew, and soon people from all over Ireland were coming to the town of Milltown in County Clare to get him to paint their likenesses. One day, a beautiful young Englishwoman arrived at his house in a stretch limo and asked if he would paint her in the S. This being the first time anyone had made such a request, he was a bit perturbed, particularly when the woman told him that money was no object. In fact, she was willing to pay up to £10,000. Not wanting to get into any marital strife, he asked her to wait while he went into the house to confer with Mary, his wife. They talked much about the rightness and wrongness of it. It was hard to make the decision, but finally his wife agreed on one condition. In a few minutes, he returned. "Would it be my pleasure to paint your portrait, missus?" he said. "The wife says it's okay." "I'll paint you in the all right, but I have to at least leave me socks on, so I have a place to wipe me brushes." The astonished woman replies, "I beg your pardon, sir. I must have misunderstood you. What did you say?" "Listen up, damn it. I said I want to open a damn checking account now." "I'm very sorry, sir, but that kind of language is not tolerated in this bank." The teller leaves the window and goes over to the bank manager to inform him of her situation. The manager agrees that the teller does not have to listen to that sort of language. They both return to the window, and the manager asks the old biker, "Sir, what seems to be the problem here?" "There is no damn problem," the man says. "I just won $50 million in the damn lottery, and I want to open a damn checking account in this damn bank." "I see," says the manager. "And is this bitch giving you a hard time?" The little Johnny, his uncle, and a cat on a farm. So, a father comes home to little Johnny one day and says that they'll have to move for a while. He's going out on a business trip, and his mother is in the hospital for a car accident, so little Johnny has to stay with his uncle for a while. His uncle is a farmer, and so little Johnny arrives on the farm. He's only allowed to bring what he can carry as well as his pet cat. So he meets with his uncle, and despite being a rather harsh man due to his work, he's well-meaning. Not to mention, he seems to be quite a fan of cats ever since his wife met an unfortunate end at the hoof of one of the farm's horses. So the little Johnny's going to bed, and he lets the cat out for the night. A few hours later, he wakes to the sound of screaming. He comes outside, and his uncle is running about absolutely swamped in baby chicks and kittens. They seem to have just sprung up overnight. He's trying to herd them all into a small, boxed-off area, but it's so damn difficult while trying not to hurt them. The little Johnny, naturally confused, asks what happened. The farmer replies, "Your cat got into the chicken's nest," to which little Johnny replies, "Yeah, so what?" His uncle promptly shoots back, "Haven't your parents told you what happens when you leave a pussy and a seeweezy alone in a house overnight?" A man celebrating his 100th birthday was asked by a reporter how he had managed to live so long. The man contemplated that question and looked over at his wife. She sat beside him, and a small smile played around her lips. He hesitated for a moment before he explained, "Well, son, I got married when I was 21. The wife and I decided that if ever we argued, the loser should take a long walk to cool off. So I guess I've benefited from 79 years of fresh air. My life is a mess," he says. My owner is mean, my girlfriend ran away with a schnauzer, and I'm as jittery as a cat. Just the other day, the postman almost ran me over. I was chased by the neighbor's cat, and then the paperboy managed to hit me with his paper toss. I think I have fleas, or at least I'm allergic to the new bird my owner got. All in all, I'm a total mess and don't know what to do. Why don't you go see a psychiatrist? Suggests the collie. I can't, says the poodle. I'm not allowed on the couch. One day, a wife was looking in the mirror, feeling a bit reflective. You know, I'm 55 years old now, she said to her husband, but one of your friends keeps complimenting me. The husband, not missing a beat, looked up from his newspaper and asked, Was it Bob by any chance? Surprised, the wife nodded. Yeah, how'd you know? With a grin, the husband replied, Well, that's easy. Bob is a scrap dealer. He's got an eye for old things that still hold some value. My son, if you keep spending on a woman and she never asked you if you're saving or investing, and she keeps enjoying the attention, don't marry her. My son, a woman could be a good wife to you. Some could be a good mother to your children. But if you found a woman like a mother to you, your children, and your family, please don't let her go. My son, don't confine the position of your wife to the kitchen. Where did you get that from? Even in our days, we had farmlands where they worked every morning. That was our office. My son, if I tell you that you're the head of the house, don't look at your pocket. Look if you will see a smile on your wife's face. My son, if you want to have a long life, let your wife be in charge of your salary. It will be difficult for her to spend it when she's aware of the home needs and bills to pay, but if it's in your care, she will keep you asking even when all has been spent. My son, don't ever beat your woman. The pain in her body is nothing to be compared to the wound on her heart, and that means you may be in trouble living with a wounded woman. My son, now that you're married, if you live a bachelor kind of life with your wife, you will soon be single again. My son, in our days, we had many wives and many children because of our large farmlands and many harvests. There is hardly any land for farming anymore, so embrace your woman closely. My son, under the big tree that I did meet your mother, could be your eateries and restaurants nowadays, but remember, the closet thing we did there was to embrace each other. My son, don't be carried away when you start making more money. Instead of spending on those tiny legs that never knew how hard you worked to get it, spend it on that woman that stood by you all along, my son, when I threw little stones or whistled at the window of your mother's father's house to call her out. It was not for It was because I missed her so much. My son, remember when you say your wife has changed, there could be something you've stopped doing, too. My son, your mother rode the bicycle with me before I bought that tortoise car outside there. Any woman that won't endure with you in your little beginning should not enjoy your riches. My son, don't compare your wife to any woman. There are ways she's enduring you too, and has she ever compared you to any man? My son, there is this thing you people call feminism. Well, if a woman claims to have equal rights with you in the house, divide all the bills into 2 equal parts. Take one part and ask her to start paying the other part. My son, I met your mother and I took more yams to her father. If you don't meet your wife as a don't blame her. What I didn't tell you is that our women had prestige. My son, I didn't send your sisters to school because I was foolish, like many, to think a female child won't extend my family name. Please don't make that mistake. The kind of female achievers I see nowadays have made the male gender an ordinary tag. My son, your mother, once locked up the cloth I was wearing and almost tore it because she was angry. I did not raise my hand to beat her because of a day like this, so that I can be proud to tell you that I never for once beat your mother. My son, in our days, our women had more natural beauty, though I wouldn't lie to you. Some had minor painting of their appellation mostly on their arms, the ones you people now call tattoos. But don't forget that they didn't expose any part of their body like your women of nowadays. My son, your mother, and I are not interested in what happens in your marriage. Try to handle issues without always coming to us. My son, remember I bought your mother's first sewing machine for her? Help your wife achieve her dreams just as you're pursuing yours. My son, don't stop taking care of me and your mother. It's a secret of growing old and having children to take care of you too. My son, pray with your family. There is a tomorrow you don't know. Talk to God, who knows everything every day. A chap is going on tour of a factory that produces latex products. At the first stop, he's shown the machine that manufactures baby bottle nipples. The machine makes a loud hiss-pop noise. The hiss is the rubber being injected into the mold, explains the guide. The popping sound is a needle poking a hole in the end of the nipple. Later, the tour reaches the part of the factory where are made. The machine makes a noise. Hiss, 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 pop. Wait a minute, says the visitor. I understand what the hiss is, but what's that pop every so often? Oh, it's just the same as in the baby bottle nipple machine, says the guide. It pokes a hole in every... Well, that can't be good for the... No, but it's great for the baby bottle nipple business. A dairy farmer walks into his feed store and asks the clerk, "Has your product recently changed?" "Same formula for 2 decades now," replies the clerk. "Why do you ask?" "Your cattle not eating?" "No, it's not that. It's just that their flatulence has become unbearable. It used to not bother me, but it's got to the point that I can't even be in the barn without wearing a respirator." "That's strange. Farmer Brown had the same problem with his cows a few years ago." "You don't happen to remember what he did about it, do you?" "I'm desperate here," the farmer asked. "I do, in fact," the clerk responded. He mixed 4.5 ounces of turpentine into every gallon of water he gave them. "Thanks. I'll give it a try." 5 days later, the farmer comes storming back into the feed store shouting, "I did what you said, and my cows are all dead." "Now that is strange," the clerk replies. "And why exactly is that strange?" the farmer demanded to know. "Because the exact same thing happened with Farmer Brown's cattle." The new CEO wanted to teach about productivity. After gathering the managers, he spoke at the importance of cutting out the fat, streamlining the company, numbers, and projections against the crisis, and the need for a more energetic administration. After that, they left for lunch. While passing through the offices, the new CEO found a young man, dressed in jeans and leaning on the wall, tapping on his phone. Deciding to make an example for his managers who were behind him, he approached the teen. "Hey, young man, what are you doing?" "I'm texting my girl, man. What's up?" "Well, and how much do you earn per hour?" $5, man." "Well, 5 per hour, 8 hours, 5 days a week. You earn $800 per month. Here, I have $1,500 in cash. Take it and never show your face here again." The teen took the money and left the office right away. Smiling, he turned to his managers. "See? That's what I'm talking about. Cutting off the fat, removing the unnecessary, productivity." While his managers applauded him, he turned to one of the desk workers. "Just for curiosity's sake, for how long did the boy work here?" "He didn't work here. He was the guy from Uber Eats bringing us lunch, sir." 4 cannibals apply for a job in a big corporation. "Well," says the boss, "if I hire you guys, you have to promise to not eat any of our staff." The cannibals promise that they will not eat anyone and get hired. Everything is going well for a while, and one day the boss calls them into his office. "You're working well and all, but we're missing an office cleaner. Do you have something to do with that?" The cannibals swear that they are innocent. The boss believes them and leaves the office, and they all turn to their leader. "You idiots!" he screams. "Who ate the cleaner?" One of the cannibals sheepishly raises his hand. You fool, shouts the leader. For weeks we've been feasting on directors, team leaders, project managers, and human resource staff, and then you go and eat someone they'll actually miss. After a long stint in prison, Kathy managed to secure herself a job at a candy shop. She arrived on the first day wearing a proper yet practical dress. However, her first day was set to be retrieving candy at the front register. The first customer came, looked at the candy, and asked for licorice. This was on the top shelf, so Kathy had to climb up and down the ladder to get it. The second customer came, checked the candy shelf, and asked for peppermint. These were also on the top shelf, so Kathy had to climb up and down the ladder again. The following customers all also wanted the top shelf candy, forcing Kathy to spend all day going up and down the ladder. At the end of the day, Kathy went to the owner, George, to ask a question. "Hey, so may I ask, why is all the popular candy on the top shelf?" George looked her up and down. "I don't think it's the candy. They, might have wanted to see your undergarments." "Huh, well, joke's on them. I don't even wear panties." Billy Bob wanted a job as a signalman on the railways. He was told to meet the inspector at the signal box. The inspector asked, "What would you do if you realized that two trains were heading for each other on the same track?" Billy Bob replied, "I would switch the points for one of the trains." "What if the lever broke?" asked the inspector. "Then I'd dash down out of the signal box," said Billy Bob, "and I'd use the manual lever over there." "What if that had been struck by lightning?" "Then," Billy Bob continued, "I'd run back into the signal box and phone the next signal box." "What if the phone was busy?" "Well, in that case," persevered Billy Bob, "I'd rush down out of the box and use the public emergency phone at the level crossing up there." "What if that was vandalized?" "Oh, well, then I'd run into town and go get my Uncle Lester." This puzzled the inspector, so he asked, "Why would you do that?" Billy Bob answered, "Well, Uncle Lester ain't never seen a train wreck." A bloke starts his new job at the zoo and is given 3 tasks. First is to clear the exotic fish pool of weeds. As he does this, a huge fish jumps out and bites him. To show who is boss, he beats it to death with a spade. Realizing his employer won't be best pleased, he disposes of the fish by feeding it to the lions, as lions will eat anything. Moving on to the second job of clearing out the chimp house, he is attacked by the chimps, who pelt him with coconuts. He swipes at 2 chimps with a spade, killing them both. What can he do? Feed them to the lions, he says to himself, because lions eat anything, and he hurls the corpses into the lion enclosure. He moves on to the last job, which is to collect honey from the South American bees. As soon as he starts, he is attacked by the bees. He grabs the spade and smashes the bees to a pulp. By now, he knows what to do and shovels them into the lion's cage, because lions eat anything. Later that day, a new lion arrives at the zoo. He wanders up to another lion and says, "What's the food like here?" The lion says, "Absolutely brilliant. Today we had fish and chimps with mushy bees." A man, known for his large frame, found himself in a terrifying situation one day when he accidentally fell from the top of a tall building. The fall was tremendous, and as he plummeted toward the ground, onlookers gasped in horror. The impact was so great that everything around the crash site was left in chaos. Hours later, the man slowly regained consciousness in the hospital, his body aching from the fall. Dazed and confused, he looked around, trying to make sense of what had happened. A doctor was standing by his bedside, monitoring his condition closely. With a shaky voice, the man asked, "Am I alive?" The doctor, though relieved that the man had survived such a fall, couldn't hide a hint of irony in his response. He replied, "You're alive, but the people you fell on died." One afternoon, a blonde sat at a table, carefully holding a light bulb in one hand and a marker in the other. She was focused, diligently writing something on the smooth glass surface of the bulb. As she worked, A curious friend walked by and noticed what she was doing. Intrigued, the friend stopped and asked, "What are you doing?" Without missing a beat, the blonde looked up with a proud smile and replied, "I'm making my father's name bright." One night, little Johnny was deep in his studies with his teacher, diligently working on his homework. The clock on the wall ticked away, and the teacher glanced at it with concern. Noticing how late it was getting, she asked, "Isn't it getting late?" "What's the time now?" Johnny, always one to find a creative solution, thought for a moment. Instead of simply checking the time, he picked up a small stone from the ground outside the window. With a mischievous grin, he threw the stone at the house across the street. The stone hit the side of the house with a gentle thud, and soon enough, an old woman emerged from the house, clearly annoyed. She looked around and, seeing Johnny and his teacher, shouted, "You rascals, it's already 2 a.m., go to sleep!" One afternoon, a beggar approached a large, elegant house, hoping for some kindness. He knocked on the door and called out, "Please, give something." The lady of the house, known for her generosity, answered the door. But today, her face reflected a mix of weariness and regret. With a polite but firm tone, she said, "I'm sorry, we don't have anything to give today. Please forgive us." The beggar, rather than leaving disappointed, looked at her with a gentle smile. His eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief as he responded, "All right, then. Just give me your number. I'll pray for you and send a message, too." A science teacher asked her students' children, if you could own one mineral, what would it be? One boy said, "I would choose gold. It's worth lots of money, and I could buy a Corvette." Another boy said, "I would want platinum because it's worth more than gold, and I could buy a Porsche." The teacher said, "Johnny, what would you want?" Johnny said, "I would want silicone." "Why would you want silicone?" asked the teacher. "Well, my mom got some." He replied, "And there's always a Porsche or a Corvette sitting in our driveway." A man was sitting on the edge of the bed, observing his wife, looking at herself in the mirror. Since her birthday was not far off, he asked what she'd like to have for her birthday. "I'd like to be 6 again," she replied, still looking in the mirror. On the morning of her birthday, he arose early, made her a nice big bowl of Lucky Charms, and then took her to Six Flags theme park. What a day! He put her on every ride in the park: the Death Slide, Wall of Fear, Screaming Monster roller coaster, everything there was. 5 hours later, they staggered out of the theme park. Her head was reeling, and her stomach felt upside down. He then took her to a McDonald's, where he ordered her a Happy Meal with extra fries and a chocolate shake. Then it was off to a movie, popcorn, a soda pop, and her favorite candy, M and Ms. What a fabulous adventure. Finally, she wobbled home with her husband and collapsed into bed exhausted. He leaned over his wife with a big smile and lovingly asked, "Well, dear, what was it like being 6 again?" Her eyes slowly opened and her expression changed. "I meant my dress size." John went to visit his 90-year-old grandfather in a very secluded rural area of Saskatchewan. After spending a great evening chatting the night away, the next morning, John grandfather prepared a breakfast of bacon, eggs, and toast. However, John noticed a film-like substance on his plate and questioned his grandfather, asking, "Are these plates clean?" His grandfather replied that they're as clean as cold water can get. "Them. Just go ahead and finish your meal, sonny." For lunch, the old man made hamburgers. Again, John was concerned about the plates, as his appeared to have tiny specks around the edge that looked like dried eggs, and asked, "Are you sure these plates are clean?" Without looking up, the old man said, "I told you before, sonny, those dishes are as clean as cold water can get them. Now don't you fret, I don't want to hear another word about it." Later that afternoon, John was on his way to a nearby town, and as he was leaving, his grandfather's dog started to growl and wouldn't let him pass. John yelled, "Grandfather, your dog won't let me get to my car." Without diverting his attention from the football game he was watching on TV, the old man shouted, "Cold water, go lay down now, you hear me?" A very attractive young lady was sitting in a fine restaurant one night. She was still feeling bloated from lunch, so she was fearful of farting in front of her date who hadn't arrived yet. It wasn't long before she actually let one out, but she managed to cover up the sound with a fake cough. She continued waiting for her date to arrive, but wanted to make sure everything was perfect. As she bends down in her chair to get the mirror from her purse, she accidentally farts quite loudly just as the waiter walks up. Sitting up straight now, embarrassed and red-faced, knowing everyone in the place heard her, she turns to the waiter and demands, "Stop that." The waiter looks at her dryly and says, "Certainly, madam. Which way was it headed?" A man calls home to his wife and says, "Honey, I have been asked to go fishing at a big lake up in Canada with my boss and several of his friends. We'll be gone for a week. This is a good opportunity for me to get that promotion I've been wanting. So would you please pack me enough clothes for a week and set out my rod and tackle box? We're leaving from the office, and I will swing by the house to pick up my things. Oh, please pack my new blue silk pajamas." The wife thinks this sounds a little fishy, but being a good wife, she does exactly what her husband asked. The following weekend, he comes home a little tired, but otherwise looking good. The wife welcomes him home and asks if he caught many fish. He says, "Yes, lots of walleye, some bluegill, and a few pike. But why didn't you pack my new blue silk pajamas like I asked you to do?" "I did. They're in your tackle box." Three drunken guys entered a taxi after a heavy night of drinking. Immediately realizing that the men were inebriated, he quickly thought up a plan to get rid of them. He started the engine, turned it off again, and said, "We have reached your destination." "All right, pal, here you go," said the first guy as he gave him the money. The second guy thanked him enthusiastically. The third guy slapped him across the face with brute force. "What was that for?" yelled the surprised driver, thinking he was caught. "Next time, don't go so fast. You nearly killed us." John and his wife are getting ready for bed. The wife is standing in front of a full-length mirror, taking a hard look at herself. "You know, love," she says. I look in the mirror, and I see an old woman. My face is all wrinkled, my boobs are barely above my waist, and my bum is hanging out a mile. I've got fat legs, and my arms are all flabby. She turns to John and says, "Tell me something positive to make me feel better about myself." He thinks about it for a bit and then says in a soft voice, "Well, there's nothing wrong with your eyesight." A fellow walks into a bar, notices a very large jar on the counter, and sees that it's filled to the brim with $10 bills. He guesses there must be more than $10,000 in it. He approaches the bartender and asks, "What's with the money in the jar?" "Well, you pay $10, and if you pass 3 tests, you get all the money and the keys to a brand new Lexus." The man certainly isn't going to pass this up, and so he asks, "What are the 3 tests?" "You must pay first. Those are the rules," says the bartender. So, after thinking it over a while, the man gives the bartender the $10 and the bartender drops it into the jar. "Okay," the bartender says, "here's what you need to do. First, you have to drink a whole quart of tequila in a minute or less, and you can't make a face while doing it. Second, there's a pit bull chained in the back with a bad tooth. You have to remove that tooth with your bare hands. Third, there's a 90-year-old lady upstairs who has never had sex. You have to take care of that problem." The man is stunned. "I know I paid my $10, but I'm not an idiot. I won't do it. You'd have to be nuts to drink a quart of tequila and then do all those other things." "Your call," says the bartender, "but your money stays where it is." As time goes on and the man has a few more drinks, he finally says, "Where's the damn tequila?" He grabs the bottle with both hands and drinks it as fast as he can. Tears stream down both cheeks, but he doesn't make a face. And he did it in 58 seconds. Next, he staggers out the back door where he sees the pit bull chained to a pole. Soon the people inside the bar hear growling, biting, and screaming sounds. Then nothing but silence. Just when they think that the man surely must be dead, he staggers back into the bar with his shirt ripped open, and there are scratches and blood all over his body. He says, "Now, where's that old woman with the bad tooth?" 3 men, for awful crimes, are sentenced to 25 years in solitary confinement. They are supplied with only food and drink. Before they go in, they get to choose one thing in any amount to take in with them for the 25-year duration. The first prisoner chooses an endless supply of the finest wine. "Might as well pass the time drunk," he said. The second prisoner asked to be locked with his wife. "Might as well have her lovely company," said he, and the loving wife agreed. The third prisoner asked for an endless supply of cigarettes. "It's the only thing that will calm me down all these years." They are locked inside, each with his wish. 25 years pass. It is a day of celebration, and all gather to see what was the fate of the 3 imprisoned men. They open the first prisoner's door, and immediately hundreds of wine bottles come crashing out. He himself was in a corner, wasted and hardly alive. Then they open the second prisoner's door, and a whole family steps out, babies, children, and some teenagers, blinking in the new light of the world outside their cell. Then they open the third prisoner's door, and nothing comes out but unopened packs of cigarettes. The prisoner crawls slowly through the door, holding a single crushed cigarette in his shaking hand. "Does anyone?" he asks with a broken voice. "Have a light?" A missionary who had spent years showing a tribe of natives how to farm and build things to be self-sufficient gets word that he is to return home. He realizes that the one thing he never taught the natives was how to speak English. So he takes the chief and starts walking in the forest. He points to a tree and says to the chief, "This is a tree." The chief looks at the tree and grunts. "Tree?" The missionary is pleased with the response. They walk a little farther, and the padre points to a rock and says, "This is a rock." Hearing this, the chief looks and grunts, "Rock." The padre is really getting enthusiastic about the results when he hears rustling in the bushes. As he peeks over the top, he sees a couple in the midst of heavy sexual activity. The patient is really flustered and quickly responds, "Riding a bike?" The chief looks at the couple briefly, pulls out his blowgun, and kills them. The padre goes ballistic and yells at the chief that he has spent years teaching the tribe how to be civilized and kind to each other, so how could he just kill these people in cold blood that way? "My bike?" A man wanted to become a monk, so he went to the monastery and talked to the abbot, the head monk. The abbot said, "You must take a vow of silence and can only say 2 words every 3 years. The man agreed. After the first 3 years, the abbot came to him and said, "What are your 2 words?" "Food cold," the man replied. The abbot made sure the meals are not cold. 3 more years went by, and the abbot came to him and said, "What are your 2 words?" "Robe dirty," the man exclaimed. The abbot ordered his robe be washed. 3 more years went by, and the abbot came to him and said, "What are your 2 words?" "Bed hard." The abbot made sure the mattress got restuffed. 3 more years went by, and the abbot came to him and said, "What are your 2 words?" And "I quit," said the man. "Well," the abbot replied, "I'm not surprised. You've done nothing but complain since you got here." 3 friends, a rabbi, a Hindu holy man, and a lawyer, had car trouble in the countryside and asked to spend the night with a farmer. The farmer said, "There might be a problem. You see, I only have room for 2 to sleep, so one of you must sleep in the barn." "No problem," chimed the rabbi. "My people wandered in the desert for 40 years. I am humble enough to sleep in the barn for an evening in their memory." With that, he departed to the barn, and the others bedded down for the night. Moments later, a knock was heard at the door. The farmer opened the door. There stood the rabbi from the barn. "What's wrong?" asked the farmer. He replied, "I am grateful to you, good sir, but I can't sleep in the barn. There is a pig in the barn, and my faith believes that is an unclean animal." His Hindu friend agreed to swap places with him, but a few minutes later, the same scene recurs. There was a knock on the door. "What wrong now?" the farmer asked. The Hindu holy man replied, "I too am grateful for your helping us out, but there is a cow in the barn, and in my country cows are considered sacred. I can't sleep on holy ground." Well, that left only the lawyer to make the change. He grumbled and complained, but went out to the barn. Moments later, there was another knock on the farmer's door. Frustrated and tired, the farmer opened the door, and there stood the pig and the cow. One day, an old man came home, his mind preoccupied with the usual worries of life, when he noticed something strange. The house was eerily quiet. As he walked through the rooms, it became clear that his wife was nowhere to be found. He then discovered a note left on the kitchen table. The words, scrawled in a hurry, made his heart sink. "I've run away with your friend Bob." For a moment, the old man just stood there, trying to process what had happened. Bob, his longtime friend, had betrayed him, and his wife had left him without a second thought. Anger and disbelief swirled within him, but life had to go on. 3 days passed, each one filled with a mix of resentment and sorrow. Then, one afternoon, as he was sitting in his chair trying to read, he heard the sound of the front door creaking open. To his astonishment, his wife walked in as if nothing had happened. Furious, the old man jumped up and confronted her. "What have you come back for now? After running away with Bob, how dare you return here?" His wife, remarkably calm and seemingly unfazed by his anger, looked him straight in the eyes and said, "I forgot my keys. I've come to get it." One dark night in Dublin, a fire started inside the local chemical plant. In a blink of an eye, it exploded into massive flames. The alarm went out to all the fire departments for miles around. When the firefighters appeared on the scene, the chemical company president rushed to the firemen in charge and said, "All our secret formulas are in the vault in the center of the plant. They must be saved. I will give 50,000 euros to the fire department that brings them out intact." But the roaring flames held the firefighters off. Soon more fire departments had to be called in as the situation became desperate. As the firemen arrived, the president shouted out that the offer was now 100,000 euros to the fire station, who could bring out the company's secret files. But still, the firefighters could not get through. From the distance, a lone siren was heard as another fire truck came into sight. It was the nearby rural township volunteer fire brigade, composed mainly of old men over 65. To everyone's amazement, that little run-down fire engine roared right past all the newer sleek engines that were parked outside the plant. Without even slowing down, it drove straight into the middle of the inferno. Outside, the other firemen watched as the old-timers jumped off right in the middle of the fire and fought it back on all sides. It was a performance and effort never seen before. Within a short time, the old-timers had extinguished the fire and had saved the secret formulas. The grateful chemical company president announced that for such a superhuman feat, he was upping the reward to 200,000 euros and walked over to personally thank each of the brave firefighters. The local TV station caught the thank you on film and asked the chief, "What are you going to do with all that money?" "Well," said Patty, the 70-year-old fire chief, "the first thing we're going to do is fix the brakes on that bloody fire truck." Judge: "Why do you want divorce?" Petitioner: "My wife asks me to peel off garlic, cut onions, and wash utensils." Judge: "What's the problem in this? Just warm up the garlic. It will be easy to peel it. Before cutting onions, just chill them in the refrigerator. And then while cutting them, the eyes won't burn. Before washing utensils, just immerse them in a water tub for 10 minutes. They can be easily washed. Before washing clothes in surf, soak them in water for half an hour. All the stains will go away and even hands won't get tired. Petitioner. Understand, Your Honor. Please return my petition. Judge. What have you understood? Petitioner. That your condition is worse than mine. A woman meets with her lover, who also happens to be her husband's best friend. They make love for hours. Afterwards, as they lie in bed, the phone suddenly rings. Since it's the woman's house, she picks up the receiver. The best friend listens, only hearing her side of the conversation. Hello? Oh, hi. I'm so glad that you called. Really? That's wonderful. Well, I'm happy to hear you're having such a great time. Oh, that sounds terrific. Love you too. Okay, bye-bye. She hangs up the telephone and her lover asks, Who was that? Oh, she replies, That was just my husband telling me about the wonderful time he's having on his fishing trip with you. A husband decides to join his wife for the first time playing golf. He's never really been into the game, but since his wife was playing with all these men around, he wanted to come and check it out. All day long he complains about the heat, about the other people, about how long it's taking. They are on the 9th green when suddenly he collapses from a heart attack. Help me, he groans to his wife. The wife calls 911 on her cell phone, talks for a few minutes, picks up her putter, and lines up her putt. Her husband raises his head off the green and stares at her. I'm dying over here and you're putting? Don't worry, dear, says the wife calmly. They found a doctor on the 2nd hole, and he's coming to help you? Well, how long will it take for him to get here? He asks feebly. No time at all, says his wife. Everybody's already agreed to let him play through. A biker stopped by the local Harley shop to have his bike repaired. They couldn't do the work while he waited, and so, since he didn't live far from the shop, he decided to walk home. On the way home, he stopped at the hardware store and bought a bucket and an anvil. He stopped at the feed store L livestock dealer and picked up a couple of chickens and a goose. However, he had a problem: how to carry his entire purchase home. The feed store owner said, Why don't you put the anvil in the bucket, carry the bucket in one hand, put a chicken under each arm, and carry the goose in your other hand? Hey, thanks, said the biker, and out the door he went. In the parking lot, he was approached by a little old lady who told him she was lost and asked if he could tell her the way to 1603 Mockingbird Lane. The biker said, As a matter of fact, I live at 1616 Mockingbird Lane. We can take a shortcut down this alley and be there in no time. The little old lady looked him over cautiously and then said, I am a lonely widow without a husband to defend me. How do I know that when we get in the alley you won't hold me up against the wall, pull up my skirt, and ravish me? The biker said, Holy smokes, lady, I'm carrying a bucket, an anvil, 2 chickens, and a goose. How in hell could I possibly hold you up against a wall and do that? The lady said, Set the goose down, cover him with the bucket, put the anvil on top of the bucket, and I'll hold the chickens. 3 nurses sadly pass away. They rise up into heaven, and there they approach the gatekeeper to plead their case for entering paradise. So the keeper points to the first nurse, who says, I worked in an emergency room. I treated many people, and always did my best to help. And although sometimes we would lose patience, I still think I deserve to enter. The gatekeeper glances at her file and admits her to heaven. The second nurse then says, I used to work in the operating room assisting surgeons. It was a lot of stress, and we lost many people. But I always did my best. The keeper glances at her file and motions for her to enter. And you? He asks the third nurse. I was a case manager for an HMO. I worked with thousands of patients, she answers confidently. The gatekeeper takes a long and careful look at her file. He pulls out a calculator and starts entering digits quickly, looking back from time to time at the woman's file. After a few minutes like this, the keeper looks up, smiles at her, and says, Congratulations. You've been admitted to heaven for 5 days? A husband and his wife were celebrating 50 years together. Their 3 kids, all very successful, all agreed to a Sunday dinner in their honor. "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad," gushed son number 1, a surgeon. "Sorry, I'm running late. I had an emergency at the hospital with a patient. You know how it is, and I didn't have time to get you a gift." "Not to worry," said the father. "The important thing is that we're all together today." Son number 2, a lawyer, arrived and announced, "You and Mom look great, Dad. I just flew in from Los Angeles between depositions and didn't have time to shop for you." "It's nothing," said the father. "We're glad you were able to come." Just then, the daughter, a marketing executive, arrived. "Hello and happy anniversary. I'm sorry, but my boss is sending me out of town and I was really busy packing, so I didn't have time to get you anything." After they finished dessert, the father said, "There's something your mother and I have wanted to tell you for a long time. You see, we were very poor. Despite this, we were able to send each of you to college. Throughout the years, your mother and I knew we loved each other very much, but we just never found the time to get married." The 3 children gasped and all said, "You mean we're bastards?" "Yep," said the father, "and cheap ones too." As a boat docked into a tiny seaside village, a visiting businessman complimented the local fisherman on the quality of his fish and asked how long it took him to catch them. "Not very long," answered the fisherman. "But then, why didn't you stay out longer and catch more?" asked the businessman. The fisherman explained that his small catch was sufficient to meet his needs and those of his family. The businessman asked, "But what do you do with the rest of your time?" "I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, and take a siesta with my wife. In the evenings, I go into the village to see my friends, play the guitar, and sing a few songs. I have a full life." The businessman interrupted. "I have an MBA from Harvard, and I can help you. You should start by fishing longer every day. You can then sell the extra fish you catch. With the extra revenue, you can buy a bigger boat." "And after that?" asked the fisherman. "With the extra money the larger boat will bring, you can buy a second one and a third one and so on until you have an entire fleet of trawlers. Instead of selling your fish to a middleman, you can then negotiate directly with the processing plants and maybe even open your own plant. You can then leave this little village and move to the city, Los Angeles, or even New York City. From there, you can direct your huge new enterprise." "How long would that take?" asked the fisherman. 20, perhaps 25 years, replied the businessman. "And after that?" "Afterwards? Well, my friend, that's when it gets really interesting," answered the businessman, laughing. "When your business gets really big, you can start selling stocks and make millions." "Millions? Really? And after that?" said the fisherman. "After that, you'll be able to retire, live in a tiny village near the coast, sleep late, play with your children, catch a few fish, take a siesta with your wife, and spend your evenings doing what you like and enjoying your friends." There's a Mexican, an American, and a Russian man on a plane. The Mexican says, "I hate my country," and throws a tin of soup out the window. The American says, "I hate my country," and throws a pie out the window. The Russian says, "I hate my country," and throws a bomb out the window. The plane lands, and the Mexican sees a kid crying and asks him, "What's wrong, kid?" The kid says, "A tin of soup fell on my mom's head, and now she's dead." "I didn't do that," says the Mexican. The American sees another kid crying and asks her, "What's wrong, kid?" The kid says, "My mom was driving, and a pie fell on her windshield, and she drove off a cliff as she couldn't see." "I didn't do that," says the American. Then the Russian gets off the plane and sees a kid laughing his head off. The Russian says, "What's so funny?" The kid says, "Daddy just farted, and the house went boom." A woman and man got into a car accident. Both of their cars were badly damaged, but amazingly, neither of them were hurt. After they crawled out of the wreckage, the woman said, "Wow, look at our cars. There's nothing left. Thank God we are all right. This must be a sign from Him that we should be friends and not try to pin the blame on each other." The man replied, "Oh yes, I agree with you completely." The woman pointed to a bottle on the ground and said, "Here's another miracle. Somehow, this bottle of whiskey from my back seat didn't break. Surely God wants us to drink it and celebrate our good fortune." Then she handed the bottle to the man. The man nodded his head in agreement, opened it, and drank about a third of the bottle to calm his nerves. He then handed it back to the woman. The woman took the bottle, immediately put the cap back on, and handed it back to the man. The man asked, "Aren't you having any?" The woman replied, "No. I think I'll just wait for the police. I'll let them decide whose fault it is." A photographer, who was also a confirmed atheist, decided to go into the woods to get photos of the fall foliage. It was a beautiful day, fall colors, birds chirping, babbling brook, and a gentle breeze rustling the leaves. While snapping shots, the photographer heard a noise behind him and whirled around to see a huge bear coming through the bushes. He dropped his camera and ran, and kept running and running. And looking behind him, he noticed the bear was gaining on him. He was so scared that tears came to his eyes. He ran faster, but the bear was closing in on him. He ran faster yet and tripped over a root. Rolling over onto his back, the man saw the bear rise to his full height and raise a huge paw. And the atheist cried out, "Oh God, no!" And everything stopped. The birds stopped chirping. The brook stopped babbling. The gentle breeze stopped. And the bear froze with his paw in the air, and the man heard a booming voice say, "Young man, for years you've doubted my very existence, but now that your life is in peril, you call my name to help you. Why should I do so?" And the man thought for a moment and said, "Yes, you are right. If you are God, then it would be hypocritical of me to become a Christian at this point in my life. But do you think that you could at least make the bear a Christian for today?" And the booming voice was quiet for a moment and then said, "Done." And everything started again. The birds chirping, brook babbling, and gentle breeze rustling the leaves. And the bear slowly lowered his paw. Then the bear put his paws together and bowed his massive head and said, "Dear Lord, please bless this food we are about to eat." Professor X, sitting in his wheelchair, asks a girl, "What is your mutant power?" Girl replies, "I can guess how many pulls to turn a ceiling fan off on the first try." She points up and says, 3 pulls. Professor X stands up and pulls 3 times. After the 3rd pull, the fan turns off. Professor X: "Yeah, that's cool and all, but not really a superpower." Girl: "Yeah, I was just kidding, I can heal paraplegics." Professor X, still standing: "Oh my God. An Australian rugby fan, a South African rugby fan, and a New Zealand rugby fan are all in Saudi Arabia sharing a smuggled crate of booze when Saudi police rush in and arrest them. The mere possession of alcohol is a severe offense in Saudi Arabia, so for consuming the booze, they are all sentenced to death. However, after many months and with the help of good lawyers, they are able successfully to appeal their sentences down to life imprisonment. By a stroke of luck, it was a Saudi national holiday the day their trial finished, and the benevolent sheikh decided they could be released after receiving just 20 lashes. As they were preparing for their punishment, the sheikh announced, "It's my first wife's birthday today, and she has asked me to allow each of you one wish before your whipping." The South African was first. He thought for a while, then said, "Please, tie a pillow to my back." This was done, but the pillow lasted only 10 lashes before the whip went through. When the punishment was done, the South African had to be carried away, bleeding and crying with pain. The Australian was next up. After watching the South African's horror, he said smugly, please fix 2 pillows to my back?" But even 2 pillows could take only 15 lashes before the whip went through, and the Australian was soon led away whimpering loudly, as they do. The New Zealander was the last one up, but before he could say anything, the sheikh turned to him and said, "You are from a most beautiful part of the world, and your culture is one of the finest. For this, you may have 2 wishes." "Thank you, your most royal and merciful highness," the Kiwi replied. "In recognition of your kindness, my first wish is that you give me not 20 lashes, but 100 lashes." "Not only are you an honorable, handsome, and powerful man, you are also very brave," the sheikh said with an admiring look on his face. "If 100 lashes is what you desire, then so be it. And your second wish, tie the Australian to my back." A Jets fan walks into a bar with his dog. The bartender says, "Hey, bud, no pets allowed in here." The man says, "But wait, this is a special dog. You have to turn on the game to see. When the Jets score, my dog does flips." Sure enough, when the bartender turns on the game, the Jets make a few field goals, and the dog starts flipping and jumping after each kick. "Wow," said the bartender, amazed. "That's great. What does he do when they score a touchdown?" "I don't know. I've only had him for 2 years. A guy was boarding a plane when he heard that the Pope was on the same flight." "This is exciting," thought the gentleman. "I've always been a big fan of the Pope. Perhaps I'll be able to see him in person." Suddenly, the man realized his seat was right next to the Pope himself. Still, the gentleman was too shy to speak to His Holiness. Shortly after takeoff, the Pope took a crossword puzzle out of his carry-on bag and began penciling in the answers. "This is fantastic," the gentleman mused. "I'm really good at crosswords." It crossed his mind that if the Pope got stuck, he'd ask him for assistance. Almost as if Providence struck, the Pope turned to the man and said, "Excuse me, but do you know a 4-letter word referring to a woman that ends in unt?" The 3 cardinals behind, in front of and beside him, shrunk down in their seats as far as possible, all looking for something on the floor. The gentleman was in morbid shock. He couldn't breathe. He went within himself, thought deeper and longer for a plausible answer, and after almost a minute, the dark clouds of evil parted in his mind and the sun shone in. Turning to the Pope, the gentleman said with reverence and politeness, "I believe, Your Holiness, that you're looking for the word ant." "Of course," the Pope mused, not taking his gaze off the crossword. "You wouldn't happen to have an eraser, would you?" 2 95-year-old men, Jack and Sam, are huge baseball fans. One day, Jack falls seriously ill and doesn't have long to live. Sam visits him in the hospital to say goodbye. Sam asks him a favor before he passes. "Hey, Jack, when you get to heaven, can you see if there is baseball there? If there is, tell me. I can certainly try for my best friend." Later that Wednesday night, Jack passed away. Thursday night, Sam is asleep in bed when all of a sudden Jack's spirit appears in front of him. Who are you?" Calm down, calm down. It's me, Jack." "Good hell, you scared me half to death." "It's okay, but I've come with good news and bad news." "Well, what's the good news then?" pondered Sam. "There is baseball in heaven." "Thank goodness," said Sam, feeling wonderful. "But what's the bad news?" "You're pitching Tuesday." There were 3 guys in an airplane. One guy dropped a rock, another dropped a brick, and the last dropped a grenade. When they got back on the ground, they were walking down the street, and they saw a woman crying. Being the gentlemen they are, they went up to ask her why she was crying. She said, "A rock fell from the sky, landed on my cat, and now my cat is dead." The men said they were very sorry to hear that and walked away. The next house they came across, a little further down the road, there was another woman crying. Being the gentlemen they are, they walk up to her and ask her why she was crying. She said, "A brick fell from the sky, landed on my dog, and now my dog is dead." The men said they were very sorry to hear that and walked away. The next house they came across, a little further down the road, there was a man laughing his head off. Wondering what was so funny, they went up to ask him. After they asked him, he replied, "I bent over to get the newspaper this morning. I farted, and my whole house blew up." Dan was a single guy living at home with his father and working in the family business. When he found out he was going to inherit a fortune when his sickly father died, he decided he needed to find a wife with whom to share his fortune. One evening, at an investment meeting, he spotted the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her natural beauty took his breath away. "I may look like an ordinary guy," he said to her, "but in just a few years my father will die and I will inherit $200 million. Impressed, the woman asked for his business card. 3 days later, she became his stepmother. Women are so much better at financial planning than men. 2 brick masons are laying a wall when suddenly one of the bricks starts to talk. When the masons start to talk to the brick, he seems just like a regular guy telling the masons about his ambitions to go and get an education so that he's not forgotten like the rest of his brethren. Then he asks the masons to go with him and get an education too so that they won't have to do this hard work anymore. When they hear this, they are taken aback, saying that they'll have to take the rest of the day off to make a decision. Coming back the next day, the masons find the brick and start talking to it, and after a while, the brick asks if they've made a decision, and the masons reply that they're sorry, but we don't need any education. And though they like him, all in all, you're just another brick in the wall. An airplane had 100 bricks in it. 1 brick falls out. How many are left? 99, of course. What are the 3 steps to put an elephant in the fridge? 1. Open the door. 2nd. Put the elephant in. 3. Close the door. What are the 3 steps to put a horse in the fridge? 1. Open the door. 2. Take the elephant out. 3rd. Put the horse in. 4. Close the door. It was a lioness's birthday party, and since she was a very social lion, she invited every animal in the world to come. Who didn't make it? Why, the horse. It couldn't get out of the fridge with its doors. A little old lady was walking through a swamp infested with crocodiles, and no one who went in there came back out uninjured before. However, the old lady made it through just fine. Why? Because the crocodiles were all at the party. Later, the little old lady was walking through a meadow in a park, but was rushed to the hospital just a few minutes later. Why was that? Because the brick fell on her. An older white-haired man walked into a jewelry store one Friday with his beautiful young girlfriend at his side. The jeweler looked through his stock and brought out a $5,000 ring and showed it to him. The old man said, "I don't think you understand. I want something very special." At that statement, the jeweler went to his special stock and brought another ring over. "Here's a stunning ring at only $40,000, the jeweler said. The young lady's eyes sparkled, and her whole body trembled with excitement. The old man, seeing this, said, "We'll take it." The jeweler asked how payment would be made, and the old man stated, "By check. I know you need to make sure my check is good, so I'll write it now, and you can call the bank on Monday to verify the funds, and I'll pick up the ring Monday afternoon," he said. Monday morning, a very teed-off jeweler called the old man. "There's no money in that account." "I know," said the old man. "But can you imagine the weekend I just had?" Upon arriving at the pyramid, they are immediately told to leave as the site has already been excavated. The friends, not willing to concede, look for a different way in and find an entrance never before used. It is through this entrance that they find a secret passageway, one that is made at first to look like a dead end but is truly a turn in the hallway. They venture around this turn and into a great room. In this room are torches. A sign just inside the room warns, "He who lights this shall burn to death." The first friend takes a torch and lights the end. The friends venture through the room to another. In this second room is a small lake with a small canoe, able to seat 3. In the canoe is a paddle that reads, "He who uses this shall die a watery death." The second friend takes this paddle and uses it to guide the three of them to the other side of the lake and through a third and final door. In this last room is a great atrium, filled with heaps upon heaps of golden artifacts and jewels. The three friends rush in and come to a golden sarcophagus. The third friend looks at it and sees that it has the warning, "The first man to touch this treasure shall die a most terrible death," written on its exterior. The third friend, giving the message no care, proceeds to pick up as much gold as he can. His friends quickly follow suit. Many months later, after the friends returned home with their money and used it to live lucrative lives, the third friend received troubling news. The first friend had been sleeping when his mansion had caught fire and burned to the ground, killing him. Remembering the warning, he calls the second friend, but they both laugh it off. A month later, the third friend is watching the news when a breaking story comes on. It is his second friend who had been out on his yacht. The boat had inexplicably capsized, killing him. The third friend saw this and grew terribly fearful, assuming he had a month left before whatever horror would befall him. The third friend sold many of his belongings to afford the most secure underground bunker. He then used his remaining fortune to buy an incredibly high-tech security system, cameras all over, and 30-plus armed guards stationed at the entrance. The third friend spent a month in the bunker. 30 days passed, and night was falling when the third friend looked to the security cameras outside of the bunker. At the entrance was an empty expanse of land, save one object. All the security guards were mysteriously gone, and just in frame was the silhouette of a sarcophagus. The third friend panicked. Rushing to the door, he pushed all manners of furniture before it. A fridge, a bookshelf, his bed, a desk. But once he had placed the final barricade, a great pounding game went to the door. Looking at security footage, the sarcophagus had begun to float and was using itself as a battering ram. To the third friend's horror, the door began to crack. With a tremendous boom, the door and all the furniture were blasted away. The third friend screamed as there in the doorway floated the sarcophagus. He ran through the bunker, stalking by the sarcophagus. The friend jumped into the bathroom and locked the door behind him. There he sat on the toilet and cried, "Boom!" The sarcophagus was there, breaking through the bathroom door. The third friend panicked, running to the sink as the sarcophagus inched forward. The friend picked up a bottle of shampoo and went through it. The sarcophagus kept coming and went. He threw a can of shaving cream. The sarcophagus was within 10 feet of him now. He threw a tube of toothpaste. The sarcophagus was within arm's length. The friend made one final attempt. He reached into the cabinet, grabbed a plastic bottle filled with a green liquid, and threw it. The sarcophagus fell to the ground and turned to dust. The man marveled at this. Looking for the last thing he had thrown, he picked it up and thought, all I had to do was take some NyQuil, and the coffin would stop. A family was having some neighbors over for a dinner party. Everything was going swimmingly. Annabelle and her family were charming and fun. The guests were entertained, and the appetizers were delicious. Even the house was spotless. Finally, the time came for everyone to gather at the dinner table for the promised meal. At the table, Annabelle turned to Lizzie, her 6-year-old daughter, and, in an attempt to impress the guests, said, "Dear, would you like to say the blessing?" "I wouldn't know what to say," replied the little girl shyly. "Just say what you hear Mommy say, sweetie," Annabelle said. Lizzie took a deep breath, bowed her head, and solemnly said, "Dear Lord, why did I invite all these people to dinner?" He wakes up the next morning to find that he has lost his credit card. He needs to get it back, but he got so drunk that he doesn't remember which bar he ended up at. The only thing he remembers is that the bar had a golden toilet. He walks downtown and goes into one bar and asks the bartender, "Excuse me, I know this is a weird question, but Do you happen to have a golden toilet here?" "A golden toilet? I don't think so," the bartender said, giving him a strange look. The man walked into another bar. "Excuse me, you don't happen to have a golden toilet here, do you?" said Derek. "A golden toilet, huh? Don't be ridiculous." This continues all day until finally Derek walks into a bar all the way on the other side of town. He asks the bartender, "Excuse me, I know this is going to sound strange, but do you have a golden toilet here? I got really drunk last night and left my credit card at a bar with a golden toilet." The bartender smiles, turns around, and yells, "Hey, Bob, I think we found the guy who took a shot in your tuba." After 15 years of marriage, my wife wanted me to take another woman out to dinner and a movie. She said, "I love you, but I know this other woman loves you and would love to spend some time with you." The other woman that my wife wanted me to visit was my mother, who had been a widow for 10 years, but the demands of my work and my 2 children had made it possible to visit her only occasionally. That night I called to invite her to go out for dinner and a movie. "What's wrong? Are you well?" she asked. My mother is the type of woman who suspects that late night's call or surprise invitation is a sign of bad news. "I thought that it would be pleasant to spend some time with you," I responded. "Just the 2 of us." She thought about it for a moment and then said, "I would like that very much." That Friday after work, as I drove over to pick her up, I was a bit nervous. When I arrived at her house, I noticed that she, too, seemed nervous about our date. She waited in the door with her coat on. She had curled her hair and was wearing the dress that she had worn to celebrate her last wedding anniversary. She smiled from a face that was as radiant as an angel's. "I told my friends that I was going to go out with my son, and they were impressed," she said as she got into the car. "I can't wait to hear about our meeting." We went to a restaurant that, although not elegant, was very nice and cozy. My mother took my arm as if she were the first lady. After we sat down, I had to read the menu. Her eyes could only read large print. Halfway through the entries, I lifted my eyes and saw Mom sitting there staring at me. A nostalgic smile was on her lips. "It was I who used to have to read the menu when you were small," she said. "Then it's time that you relax and let me return the favor," I responded. During the dinner, we had an agreeable conversation. Nothing extraordinary, but catching up on recent events of each other's lives. We talked so much that we missed the movie. As we arrived at her house later, she said, "I'll go out with you again, but only if you let me invite you." I agreed. "How was your dinner date?" asked my wife when I got home. "Very nice." "Much more so than I could have imagined," I answered. A few days later, my mother died of a massive heart attack. It happened so suddenly that I didn't have a chance to do anything for her. Sometime later, I received an envelope with a copy of a restaurant receipt from the same place where my mother and I had dined. An attached note said, "I paid this bill in advance. I wasn't sure that I could be there. But nevertheless, I paid for 2 plates. One for you and the other for your wife. You will never know what that night meant for me. I love you, son." At that moment, I understood the importance of saying untum, "I love you," and to give our loved ones the time that they deserve. Nothing in life is more important than your family. Give them the time they deserve, because these things cannot be put off till some other time. A doctor pressed the bell to call the nurse. After a few rings with no response, he rang it again. Finally, the nurse hurriedly appeared, slightly out of breath. As she arrived, the doctor noticed something unusual. Her shirt's top 3 buttons were undone, revealing a bit more than expected. The doctor, concerned but trying to keep things professional, said, "Hey, why are your, melons on display? And why are these buttons open?" Without missing a beat, the nurse, still catching her breath, replied, "Oh, don't mind it, doctor. You know, these medical students have such bad habits. No matter how many times I tell them, they just leave things open after using them." In the piece, there's a long passage of about 20 minutes during which the bass violinists have nothing to do. Rather than sit around that whole time, some bass players decided to sneak off stage and go to the tavern next door for a quick one. After slamming down several beers in quick succession, one of them looked at his watch. "Hey, we need to get back," he said. "No need to panic," said a fellow bass player. "I thought we might need some extra time, so I tied the last few pages of the conductor's score together with string. It'll take him a few minutes to get it untangled." A few moments later, they staggered back to the concert hall and took their places in the orchestra. About this time, a member of the audience noticed the conductor seemed a bit edgy and said as much to her companion. "Well, of course," said her companion. "Don't you see? It's the bottom of the ninth. The score is tied and the bassists are loaded." So a man walks up to the department store counter. "2 pairs of underwear, please." The man behind the counter looks at him in disbelief. "Only 2 pairs of underwear?" "Yup, I wear one while the other is in the wash." The man behind the counter looks at him in disgust, then rings out his order. A second man walks in. "5 pairs of underwear, please." "Only 5, eh?" "Yeah, I wear one for every weekday, then go commando all the weekend." The man behind the counter shakes his head. "Well, you're better than the last guy." A third man walks in. "7 pairs of underwear, please." Finally, a man who knows hygiene. "Yes, I do try one for every day, and I do my laundry on Sunday." At the end of the day, a fourth man walks into the underwear department. "12 pairs of underwear, please." "Wow, you must be really clean." The man smiles. "Yup, that's me. Hang on, let me see if I counted right. January, February, March, April." 2 guys, one old and one young, are pushing their carts around the grocery store when they collide. The old guy says to the young guy, "Sorry about that, I'm looking for my wife, and I guess I wasn't paying attention to where I was going." The young guy says, "That's okay. It's a coincidence I'm looking for my wife, too. I can't find her, and I'm getting a little desperate." The old guy says, "Well, maybe I can help you find her. What does she look like?" "Well, she is 27 years old, tall, with red hair, blue eyes, and long legs, and is wearing a tank top with short white shorts. What does your wife look like?" The old guy replies, "It doesn't matter. Let's look for yours." By the time the soldier pulled into the little town, every hotel room was taken. "You've got to have a room somewhere," he pleaded, with a proprietor. "Well, I do have a double room with one occupant, but he is an Air Force guy," admitted the manager, "and he might be glad to split the cost. But to tell you the truth, he snores so loudly that people in adjoining rooms have complained in the past. I'm not sure it'd be worth it to you." "No problem," the tired Army guy assured him. "I'll take it." The next morning, the soldier came down to breakfast, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. "How'd you sleep?" asked the manager. "Never better," said the soldier. The manager was impressed. "No problem with the other guy snoring all night long?" "No, I shut him up in no time," explained the soldier. "How'd you manage that?" asked the proprietor. "Well, he was already in bed, snoring away when I walked into the room, so I gave him a kiss on the cheek," explained the soldier. "Then I whispered in his ear, 'Good night, beautiful,' and he sat up all night watching me." While driving it off the lot, she decides to take it on the highway and really open things up. She hits the speed limit of 70 miles per hour and continues to accelerate 75 miles per hour, 80 miles per hour, and out of nowhere, a siren and the flashing lights of a patrol car come into view of her rearview mirror. Thinking her new car could easily outrun the police, she speeds up further until she's going well over 120 miles per hour, but the cop is still in pursuit. Realizing how stupid she is being, she slows down and pulls over. The cop pulls behind her, gets out, and storms over to the car. The woman is so distraught and apologizes profusely and explains that she had just bought the car and made the dumbest mistake of her life. Feeling pity, and it being at the end of his shift, the cop says that if the woman can make him laugh, he'll let her go without reprimand. Thinking for a moment, she responds, "Well, sir, about a week ago my husband left me for a sheriff, and I thought you were trying to bring him back." A woman walked into the clinic, her face twisted in discomfort, and instead of taking a seat in a chair, she carefully lowered herself onto the floor with a groan. The doctor, puzzled by her actions, asked, "Why don't you sit up here on the exam table?" The woman, still wincing from her pain, shook her head and replied, "Doctor, it's from sitting up too much that I got into this condition." In the office, one colleague noticed his friend's phone buzzing incessantly with "I love you" messages. Curiosity getting the better of him, he asked, "Hey, what's with all the I love you texts? Are you in the middle of some romantic adventure?" The friend chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, you wouldn't believe it," he said with a grin. "I accidentally grabbed my wife's phone this morning instead of mine." On a frigid winter night, the power had gone out in a quaint village home, leaving the house shrouded in darkness. There was a knock on the door. Trembling, she called out, her voice quivering, "Who's there?" A man's voice replied, "It's your husband, Bob." Her heart raced as panic surged through her. Her breath hitched, and her eyes widened in shock. "Oh, no!" she gasped. "If it's you, then who's inside?" A woman with a keen eye for antiques was strolling through a quaint little shop when she spotted something extraordinary. The shopkeeper was casually feeding milk to a cat in a bowl that the woman instantly recognized as a rare and ancient Chinese artifact, easily worth at least $30,000. Seeing the priceless bowl being used so carelessly, she couldn't believe her luck. Surely the shopkeeper had no idea of its true value. Feigning disinterest, she approached the counter. "Excuse me, sir," she said with a friendly smile. "That's a lovely cat you have. Would you be willing to sell her to me?" The shopkeeper hesitated, stroking his chin. "Well, she's been with me for a while. But if you really want her, I suppose I could let her go for $50. Without a second thought, the woman pulled out the money and handed it over, thrilled at the bargain. As she turned to leave with the cat in her arms, she paused and glanced back casually. "Oh, by the way," she added, "I suppose that old bowl won't be of much use to you now. Why don't you just throw it in? I'll need something to feed the cat with, after all." The shopkeeper's eyes twinkled as he grinned knowingly. "Ah, I'm afraid I can't do that, ma'am," he said with a sly smile. "You see, thanks to that bowl, I've sold 300 cats so far." One day, while lovingly massaging her husband's head, the wife smiled and asked, "You know, I've been giving you head massages every day since we got married. But tell me, who used to do this for you before we tied the knot?" The husband, enjoying the soothing touch, couldn't help but chuckle. With a mischievous grin, he replied, "Well, before we got married, I never had a headache." A man in Scotland calls his son in London the day before Christmas Eve and says, "I hate to ruin your day, but I have to tell you that your mother and I are divorcing. 45 years of misery is enough." "Dad, what are you talking about?" The son screams. "We can't stand the sight of each other any longer," the father says. "We're sick of each other, and I'm sick of talking about this, so you call your sister in Leeds and tell her." Frantically, the son calls his sister, who explodes on the phone. "Like hell, they're getting divorced," she shouts. "I'll take care of this." She calls Scotland immediately and screams at her father, "You are not getting divorced. Don't do a single thing until I get there. I'm calling my brother back, and we'll both be there tomorrow. Until then, don't do a thing. Do you hear me?" And hangs up. The old man hangs up his phone and turns to his wife. "Sorted. They're coming for Christmas and they're paying their own way. The young blonde was on vacation in the swamps of Louisiana. She really wanted a pair of genuine alligator shoes to bring back for her boyfriend, but didn't want to pay the high prices the local stores were charging. After becoming very frustrated with the local shopkeepers, the blonde shouted, "I'll just go out and catch my own alligator so I can get a pair of shoes at a reasonable price." The shopkeeper replied, "Good luck. Maybe you'll luck out and catch yourself a big one." Determined, the blonde turned and headed for the swamps, set on catching herself an alligator. Later in the day, the shopkeeper is driving home, and he spots the young woman standing waist-deep in the water, rope in hand. Just then he sees a huge 9-foot alligator swimming quickly toward her. She lunges, wraps herself around the beast, and with a great deal of effort, hauls it onto the swamp bank. Laying nearby were several more alligators, all tied up. Completely amazed, the shopkeeper got out of his car and walked toward the young lady. Just then the blonde flips the alligator on its back and, frustrated, shouts up at the shopkeeper, "Ugh, this one isn't wearing shoes either." All tests came back looking good, and the doctor sits down to discuss the results with him. "Well, Eric, physiologically, everything looks good. How are you doing emotionally and mentally? Are you feeling content? And how's your faith these days? God and I are on great terms. He knows that I see so poorly these days. So now whenever I go to the bathroom at night, then poof, the light turns on. And when I'm done peeing, then poof, the light turns off again. Fantastic. That sounds marvelous," says the doctor. A couple of days later, the doctor calls Eric's wife. "Good day, Anna." Eric's vitals are looking good, and he seems to be doing well. The reason for my call is his relation to God. Is it really true that whenever he goes to empty his bladder at night, then poof, the bathroom light turns on? And when he's done, then poof, the light turns off again? Eric's wife sighs. That old fool. He has started peeing in the fridge again. A boy was cycling with a basket of eggs on it. He hit a stone and fell down along with the cycle. The eggs also fell down and broke. A crowd gathered around the boy. As usual, free advice started flowing from the onlookers. "Couldn't you be more careful? What is this? You are cycling casually without attention." An old man approached the crowd, saw what had happened, and said, "Poor fellow, this boy has to answer the owner of the shop." "Okay, I will help him as much as I can." Saying this, handed over 500 rupees to the boy, and also said, "These onlookers are good people. They will not only give advice, but they will help you by giving money. Accept their help." The onlookers, observing the sayings of the old man and his actions, gave money to the boy. The boy was very happy, since the money collected was much more than the value of the broken eggs. One of the onlookers asked the boy, "Young man, if that old man was not around, I do not know what difficulties you would have faced with your owner." The boy smiled and replied, "Sir, that old man is the owner of the shop where I work. Doug Smith is on his deathbed and knows the end is near. His nurse, his wife, his daughter, and 2 sons are with him. He asks for 2 witnesses to be present and a camcorder to be in place to record his last wishes, and when all is ready, he begins to speak. My son, Bernie, I want you to take the Mayfair houses. My daughter said, Sybil, you take the apartments over in the East End. My son, Jamie, I want you to take the offices over in the city center. Sarah, my dear wife, please take all the residential buildings on the banks of the river. The nurse and witnesses are blown away, as they did not realize his extensive holdings. And as Doug slips away, the nurse says, Mrs. Smith, your husband must have been such a hard-working man to have accumulated all this property. Sarah replies, Property? The heirs had a paper round. Once upon a time, a daughter complained to her father that her life was miserable and that she didn't know how she was going to make it. She was tired of fighting and struggling all the time. It seemed just as one problem was solved, another one soon followed. Her father, a chef, took her to the kitchen. He filled 3 pots with water and placed each on a high fire. Once the 3 pots began to boil, he placed potatoes in 1 pot, eggs in the 2nd pot, and ground coffee beans in the 3rd pot. He then let them sit and boil without saying a word to his daughter. The daughter moaned and impatiently waited, wondering what he was doing. After 20 minutes, he turned off the burners. He took the potatoes out of the pot and placed them in a bowl. He pulled the eggs out and placed them in a bowl. He then ladled the coffee out and placed it in a cup. Turning to her, he asked, "Daughter, what do you see?" "Potatoes, eggs, and coffee," she hastily replied. "Look closer," he said, and touched the potatoes. She did, and noted that they were soft. He then asked her to take an egg and break it. After pulling off the shell, she observed the hard-boiled egg. Finally, he asked her to sip the coffee. Its rich aroma brought a smile to her face. "Father, what does this mean?" she asked. He then explained that the potatoes, the eggs, and coffee beans had each faced the same adversity. The boiling water. One reacted differently. The potato went in strong, hard, and unrelenting, but in boiling water, it became soft and weak. The egg was fragile, with the thin outer shell protecting its liquid interior until it was put in the boiling water. Then the inside of the egg became hard. However, the ground coffee beans were unique. After they were exposed to the boiling water, they changed the water and created something new. "Which one are you?" he asked his daughter. "He knocks on your door. How do you respond? Are you a potato, an egg, or a coffee bean? In life, things happen around us. Things happen to us. But the only thing that truly matters is what happens within us. Which one are you?" When problems come, and they will, how will we react? Will they make us weak and hard-hearted, or will they cause us to change into something worthwhile? One dark night in Dublin, a fire started inside the local chemical plant. In a blink of an eye, it exploded into massive flames. Armed fire departments for miles around. When the firefighters appeared on the chemical company, president rushed to the fireman in charge and said, "All formula vault in the center of the plant. They must be saved. I will give 50,000 euros to the fire department that brings them out intact." But the roaring flames held the firefighters off. Soon, more fire departments had to be called in as the situation became desperate. As the firemen arrived, the president shouted out that the offer was now 100,000 euros to the fire station, who could bring out the company bells. But still, the firefighters could not get through. From the distance, a lone siren was heard as another fire truck came into sight. It was the nearby rural township volunteer fire brigade, composed mainly of old men over 65. To everyone's amazement, that little rundown fire engine roared right